I want to show you how to plot an option collar strategy in Excel. So in a previous video, I discussed the option collar strategy and I showed you what the payoff looked like, but a viewer requested that I show you how to do this in Excel. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm not going to go into quite as much depth discussing the option collar strategy here. So if you want to cover it in a little more depth, I will leave a link to the previous video below. So let's consider the following situation. Suppose you own 100 shares of a stock that has significant price appreciation, and you're concerned about a drop in the stock's price, but you don't want to sell the stock. Now there may be several reasons you don't want to sell the stock. Okay, one reason is that you're going to have capital gains. And if you can postpone selling the stock into the next year, you can postpone paying the capital gains tax for a year. So you might have this money, it might be for a down payment on a house, and you're worried that if the stock price drops, you won't have enough for the down payment, but you don't want to sell it now because you're not going to buy the house until next year. So if you can postpone it until after the new year, you can postpone the capital gains tax for a year. So the question is, how can you inexpensively protect this position? So the protective collar might be the appropriate strategy. So to create the collar, you buy an out-of-the-money put and you write an out-of-the-money call with the same expiration date. So how does this work? The long put protects the downside loss. The short call is going to cap your possible profits, but it reduces the cost of the long put because when you're short the call, right, or writing the call, you're going to receive the premium for it. What are the pros and cons of protective collar? On the pro side, there's some downside protection. You're going to have some upside participation. Remember, you're writing an out-of-the-money call, so the price can rise some before the call that you wrote would be exercised against you. And it can be a low-cost or net credit strategy. By net credit, we mean you're going to write the call and receive a greater premium than the cost of buying the put. So you're actually going to make a little money from this strategy. What are the cons? It's going to cap your upside potential. So should the price of the stock shoot up significantly, you're not going to participate in much of that gain. It also requires active monitoring. Whenever you're engaged in option strategies, you've got to keep track of what's going on and decide whether to close out a position, or if nothing else, when those options expire, you're going to have to create the position again, otherwise you won't have the protection. And it also is going to cost more than a covered call because you're buying a put. Now, keep in mind that if you simply write a covered call, okay, or engage in a covered call strategy, you don't have that big downside protection. You will lower your break-even point because you're going to receive some money from writing the call, but should the price fall significantly, you may encounter a loss. So let's take a look at an example, and this one's from Microsoft. The share price is $424.50, and we've got 3 options, okay, with different strike prices, and they expire in March. So the 410 strike price on the call option has a premium of $27.07, and the 425, $21.25, and the 435 strike price has a premium of $13.20. And these prices make sense. Remember, the strike price is the price that you would buy the stock for, And so clearly a lower strike price is better. It's better to be able to buy at 410 than it is at 435, and that's why the 410 call costs more than the 435 call. Over on the right side here of our table, we have the premiums for the puts. So for the 410 put, it's 1130. For the 435 put, it's 2327. And again, these make sense because the strike is the price you can sell for. And so it's going to be better to be able to sell at 435 than at 410. That's why the premium for the 435 put is higher than for the 410 put. So let's see how we plot these in Excel. So we have here, I've created this table here with these payoffs. And what you need to do is figure out the payoff for each individual position. Okay, the short call position, the buying of the stock, and the buying of the put or the long put position. And then you simply add them up in order to get the collar strategy. Okay, what's the payoff for a short call? Well, the payoff for a long call is in the brackets, the square brackets here. It's the maximum of B9, which is the stock price, minus $5. I put the $sign in to lock the cell right here. That happens to be the strike price of 435. Okay, or 0. Remember, your option, if this is negative here, then it just takes on the value of 0. And then you subtract out the premium you paid, which is in cell D4. And the reason I put these $signs in is to lock those rows so I can copy the formula down. All right, I don't have to type it each time, so I do it and I copy it down. So you can't see it here, but this is exactly this here, and then you can just copy the formula down. Okay, there are several ways to do it. One is you can just double click right here in the corner. Okay, for the long stock position, the payoff is simply the stock price minus the price you paid for it, right? If you paid $424.50 and it's only selling for $325 now, you lost $99.50, right? And so you just, again, put those in, right? D2 is the price that you paid for it, and these numbers here happen to be some stock price values I picked. Okay, I started at $325 and I went up in $5 increments. I found that if I start at 0 and go up in $1 or $5 increments, the graph is just too compressed. It doesn't look right. All right, and I went up to, what did I go up to? $525. Okay, just so I could get a picture. The long put position is the maximum of the strike price, which is the price you would sell for, happens to be in cell E5, minus the price, which is in B9. We're going to start at B9, or 0, and then minus the premium you paid. And again, if you click on over here, that is exactly what I have here. And again, I just put this in and I copied it down. What's the collar? The collar is I'm just going to sum across here. Okay, and then copy that down. And so you can see we have different values here. And so if we want to graph it, let's see if we can do that. All right, I'm going to highlight all of this. And then I can never remember exactly what type of graph this is, so I just go to Insert, and then I choose Recommended Charts. I know what it's supposed to look like. That's not really what I want. This is what I want. Now that looks kind of funny, and let me click that on and say OK. Let me just move this whole thing over here a little bit. And it looks messy because you've got the the different positions, right? The orange here is the long stock position, right? That makes sense, right? Sort of going up. And then you've got the short call position, and you've got the put position. But here's what you can do. If you click this on, you can choose what you want to look at. So let's decide that we only want to look at the collar, and we'll click apply, and that's what the collar looks like. Okay, that's just this summed up column here. Okay, what it looks like is it looks like a bull spread. All right, you have limited downside loss, you have limited upside. You use it when you're moderately bullish. That is, you think the price will go up, but not too much. So here you're capping your gains, right? If the price were to keep rising, you're not going to participate, but it's a fairly inexpensive strategy. Okay, you've also capped your losses. If you simply had the long stock position, right, you could lose a lot, but you could make a lot more, right? But that's not what you want. You want to protect yourself, and that's why we've engaged in this this collar here, right? To limit our downside losses, give ourselves a little chance for some gains, all right? But for the most part, it's an inexpensive strategy. So just to recap, so in order to plot this in Excel, you have to figure out what the payoff is for each individual position you take: short call, long stock, long put. Okay, you could put this into one long equation, but it's going to be a lot harder to catch any mistakes that you make. If you forget to make this a minus sign, then you're going to get it's not going to look right. So it's easier to do the short call first, the long stock, the long put, and then sum them up. And again, when you do that, what it does is it allows you to look at each separate position. If you want to understand what the long put looks like, it looks like this, right? Where it protects you on the downside. If you simply want to look at the short call position, right, it looks like this. You can see what that looks like, right? So there's a nice way to do it. And then here we really care about the collar. So I'm just going to look at the collar. When you look at all of them at once, it's a little bit too messy to sort of understand. All right, so I hope you found this useful, and thanks for watching.